My name is Henry Nyakarundi. I'm originally from Rwanda. I'm actually here in Portland.
What was immigrating to America like? Did it fit your view about what America was in your head?
So I'm a basketball fan, right? I grew up on Michael Jordan, right? I grew up also on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And those were my favorite shows growing up, right? And I thought everybody in America was rich. That was literally what I believed. I remember when I came to Atlanta, I went to school, I saw homeless people. I called my mom, so I couldn't believe there was poor people here. I thought poor people was only in Africa. The second shock was, this is by far the hardest country I ever lived in, from all the different countries I lived in, because I thought, you're a young kid, you don't know better. You think money grows on trees, you think here everybody got money, people just throw money out the window, But this is a tough country, man. You laid on rent. I was homeless at one point here while I was in college. Certain things I experienced here never experienced back home. We have more of so it's very individualistic here, everybody on their own. I remember you call people for help and all, they don't have time for you, they're dealing with their own problems.
Right.
Back home is different, it's more community-based, even today.
I'm coming from Ghana. My coming to this country was easier. Of course, even back home, I joke to people that I'm a hustler. I'm not like one of the elites in my country, but I was a good photographer that have made headlines in the country, and I had a chance of coming to this country, and I decided to stay. We speak English in Ghana, so language wasn't a problem. I have to adapt to the American English more so than the British. Ghana was a British colony, so we use the British English more so. I'm a self-learner. I don't know if you remember, there's a website called Black Expressions. So I subscribe. One of my friends in New York joked that when they were buying CDs, I was buying books. So I read a lot and got to understand some system, how things work in this country. Got myself here. In terms of my politics, I don't have no idea how I became an elected person. I think it's an extension of the public service that I hold close and dear to my heart, because most of the work that draw my attention, even though you don't get paid a lot to do it, is the work that help young people, the work that help families, that help them to work by themselves to uplift themselves with minimal support.
My name is Lynn Nguyen. So I was born in Vietnam and I lived there for around 5 years. And then, so when I was 5, my parents wanted to migrate to the United States because they had the opportunity to. And I think definitely in Eastern countries, there's sort of this idea of pursuing the American dream, that there would be more opportunities in America. So my parents took that opportunity to migrate to the United States. So my dad works in this glass company, and basically he just moves glass around. And then he also has another job where he does food delivery for this local restaurant. And then my mom works in the nail industry, so she's a nail technician. And I think so definitely a lot of my life I've grown up in the United States, and I've definitely been through kind of sort of levels where my family weren't that financially stable. And so I remember distinctly that when I was little, I really liked going to the dollar store because all the toys were just $1. And so that was my favorite place to go. But I think eventually my parents were able to sort of move, or able to come to a place where they feel they can support me and they can support the family.
Why do you think there's so much fear and hate of immigrants and people of color in a country built on immigration?
I think it's definitely sort of stems from, this idea of wanting power. And I think I was trying to educate myself a lot about why is there such segregation? Why is there such hatred between groups on a country that's supposed to celebrate diversity? And it definitely, I think, comes back from sort of that want for power and that want for leverage.
I mentor quite a few entrepreneurs. That's really what my passion is, especially on the social side. And they look up on billionaires as their model, right? Not the one who's trying to change the society or improve. No, the billionaires. Everybody wants to be a billionaire now. You know, that's just a unicorn status. That's just the goal. You know, if you're not raising money, you're nobody. No matter what you're doing. You know. So I think the mindset I've shifted. We need to relocate that mindset. You compete with the media also, because the media is also pumping all this stuff. You know, oh, this guy just became a billionaire. Oh, this guy is going, spend X amount on a jet and all those things. So we have to really push the narrative, but also create content to show that there's another way that is much more fulfilling, much more positive, that can bring also the same joy as maybe, making a lot of money.
I agree. And so much of that is about thinking about who we celebrate.
Yeah.
And like you said, we're celebrating billionaires. We're celebrating somebody for extracting a lot from the system. And that's that individualistic mentality that we have in this country and that we're spreading all over the world. Whereas in a more communal-based approach, it's what'd you add? What'd you do? And that is something that even, 70 years ago, you had JFK saying, that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. We have to get back to that mentality. And I'm not saying it ever really existed at that time period, but we have to develop and have that mentality so we can create a world where we're thinking, what value can I add? And what things can I do to make society better? How can I improve the environment? And if we do that and take all of our brain power and put it towards that, instead of asking myself, how can I make as much money as humanly possible, regardless of the consequences, we fix a lot of these problems that we created by being so selfish.
I totally agree. I mean, we have a long way to go.
When we talk to people about a basic income, the number one thing that people say is, well, if you give poor people money, they won't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And to which case I say, well, we've been giving rich people all the money for a while, and look what they did with it. Right? They clearly don't know what to do with it because they're spending all the money on tech companies that don't do anything. And so we've got to ask ourselves, who needs to have the money? And I think the answer is everybody. Spread it out and let each individual try to figure out what they think is the smart thing to do with money so that ultimately we can have a society that's reflective of our individual wishes instead of the wishes of a small group of people.
And I always wonder, man, it's like, how much money is enough money, for somebody who's extremely rich?
Yeah.
How much money? Sometimes I wonder, when they sit, do they say, okay, I'm good now, It's also the way I see it is the way they structure it. You donate to this organization, they hire teams and all that, and then by the time it gets to the low-income people, 70% of the money is already spent on some BS, So solving that problem is simple. It's people that make it complicated. At least that's what I believe. Or complicated, some people block it. I don't think people want to, they want that separation. I think, some group of people that want to be wealthy, they don't want to be mingled with everybody else. They just want to be, live in an island away from everybody and stuff like that. So, we are worse enemies than human, man. I truly believe that, man. Because we could have solved this problem a long time ago if we really wanted.
Some of what I did when I first got here, I did work in restaurants, and then down the line, I found myself working with an after-school program in mostly housing neighborhoods where those who live there are either immigrants and other marginalized members of our community, poor white folks. And that work led me to having another job with the homeless community. And I work with adults who are unhoused and also work with teenagers who are unhoused. During these two jobs, between the after-school program that I'm running and my connection to the communities that I serve, I try to meet with the parents of all the young people that I work at the after-school program. And then working with the homeless kids, it led me to doing another job, which is volunteering at a Long Creek, which is a juvenile detention center here in South Portland. In 2010, going to 2011, I had an opportunity to work on a project that I was invited to by another person who was then working for the city. The city of Portland have a refugee program called, it is part of the GA system. It's called City of Portland's refugee program. And they asked me to start a program for parents and students because I was doing that anyway. I was working with parents and students on how to engage the education system. And that job that I started with them, I work with their staff to create a program where we work with parents and then also get them to get involved in the school system, get them to participate in their children's education system. I started seeing a system that is broken, a system that doesn't meet the need of every student. It meets the need of students who are within the bubble of status quo, the students whose families know how to engage the system, whose families know how to hack the system and get their kids what they want. So I ran for school board in 2013 and got elected. And then in 2016, I ran for city council. And I've been the city councilor since then. In both times, I happened to be the first African immigrant to be elected into any office in this state, and the first Muslim to be elected into any office in the state. We call the program Portland Empowered, and we have what is called the Youth Engagement Partners and the Parent Engagement Partners. The Youth Engagement Partners, what they do is they work within their school system. Mostly they are high school students in three of our high schools. They look into their schools and see practices that do not meet their needs, and then we work with the school district or the school specific schools to work with the leadership of that schools to make changes. With the parents, we look at policies that they believe do not work for their kids, and to look at what can we bring forward to get the parents who normally the school system look at them and say, oh, they don't want to talk to us, or they don't want to engage us, they don't care about their children's education. So we work with them over the years, created something that we call Parent Engagement Manifesto. Basically, it's Parents' Bill of Rights. This is what we need for us to engage the school system. And we got the school system, the school district here in Portland, to change their family engagement policy to include the voice that we brought to the table, which is the Parent Engagement Bill of Rights. And then we ask the school district to create another committee that will make sure that the school district is following what it said it's going to do. And so we've been doing that for the past, literally for the past 9 years.
And so what were some of the things that the parents said that they wanted to change?
Well, one, the way they are engaged. Two, they wanted we look at some of the policies around parent and family engagement. And we got a school district, the last time that the school district's family and parent engagement, policy was created was like 30-something years ago. So we changed that. And then we also made sure that there's something that my parents call face-to-face, meaning that when you want to engage parents, making phone calls and robocalls should be the beginning. It should not be the it, which means that you make phone calls, but then you get human beings to also call and speak to these parents in the language that they understand. And when you bring them to the table to have the conversation, you listen to them, and you also make sure that they have the, you have the interpretation system in place for them to be able to, and you do it, we have some parents who, for whatever reason, it's difficult for them to come out and because of immigration purposes. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that the school district, if there's something that needs to reach these parents, we facilitate the conversation for them to be able to share and talk to these parents without necessarily putting them in harm's way.
I run a company called ARED. So we basically use solar and edge technology to bridge the digital energy gap in Africa, mostly in Asia soon. It's a mini server with Wi-Fi capability, right? And we built it within the kiosk. So that allows us to do certain things. It allows us to provide Wi-Fi connectivity, but also because of the poor network in Africa, it allows us to store that application, that digital application locally on this mini server instead of storing on the cloud. If you look at the architecture of the cloud, it's a centralized structure, which is not really designed for Africa. You know, if you have a cloud in the US and you're trying to access that information from that cloud to Africa, that cost is huge, and that cost is passed on to the customer, right? But if you can lower that distance of accessing that application, you lower the cost. So we developed that product also, and then we developed a mobile app that allowed the user to access this edge technology. So we're the first company to have done so. So it's basically we call it a distributed digital network infrastructure that is solar powered. So we can do phone charging, access Wi-Fi, access any type of application locally. We also sell digital services like mobile money, airtime, all into one platform.
And so do you sell this to individuals, businesses? How does it work?
To scale much, much faster, we work with companies, fintech companies, telecom companies, NGOs that want to use our technology in different communities. So we basically a platform as a service. So they purchase the hardware, license the software. Because the market is so fragmented on the continent, trying to scale, develop, scale and all, is just too complex, So it's much better to partner with a company that already has a footprint on the ground that want to utilize your technology. So we're B2B basically.
Got it. Africa is going to be a big key to how we can solve some of the poverty problems here, is because in Africa, because the income levels are just so low, entrepreneurs have had to be very creative about how to create new markets. And we spoke with Afoso Ojomo about this in Boston, where we were discussing the fact that to really lift people out of poverty, not just like at the poverty line, which is what a basic income would do, but really lift them past, you need market innovations. You need these big things that kind of make it where lots of different people can get involved. And with a product like yours, there's so many people who need to get jobs to be able to build things like that. And you can put it pretty much anywhere in the world. You put it, and all of a sudden now you've got cell phone service. You can charge your phone. You can have a little kiosk business if you want to, and you can build things around that. You're coming up with solutions that make sense for people who are struggling with poverty. And so what I'm hoping we can do is, by giving people a basic income at the federal poverty guidelines, we give them enough money where entrepreneurs like you can succeed even more, because your customers have income to be able to spend on these things.
So my website is called Reform the Narrative, and it's basically just compiles like a bunch of different anti-racism and anti-oppression resources that I kind of compiled from like looking through social media and like doing my own research online, because I thought like, when you're scrolling through social media and you're seeing all these resources, it can be overwhelming to have them all at once. And so like what I ended up doing was just saving a bunch of them, and then I never ended up reading them again. And so I wanted to have like a platform where like anyone, when they feel ready or when they want to learn just like a small bit, they can like go in this website and then be able to look through the different resources and be able to see like what do they want to learn today. And so I have like on things of like generational wealth, systemic racism, and like basically racism within like COVID-19, the situation, and all of those things. I contacted one of my friends and asked them make a page for like how can people vote, because I think definitely a lot of times small changes happens through policy as well. I also have like movies and books to read to diversify your media and to like listen to other perspectives. I have petitions, I think like over 100 different petitions for victims of like racially charged hate crimes. And so like what can you do? Petitions, emails, your legislators, who you can contact in order to try and fight for these people. And I also made sure to include like their stories, not just like their names and like what you can do, because I think oftentimes with the media they tend to just show like, okay, this is wrong, this is like an act of injustice, here's what you can do. But it almost, like in my opinion, kind of dehumanizes them, because it's just another name, and every time you see one you think it's just another name. And I really wanted to show their story, and like that they were like a father, a mother, a daughter, an uncle, an aunt. And I wanted to show that aspect as well, to make people really care that that this could have been one of your family members, that could have this could have happened to them. But I also have this other component where it's a storytelling component, and this is sort of where I kind of come back to sort of that dialogue aspect, because I really like talking to people, and I think like one of the best ways to learn is through talking with people. Like one of them shared her story of like moving from like Syria into the United States and sort of the process in that, and sort of like the cultural differences between the United States and Syria, and like sort of the more opportunity she was able to get in the United States. And so just hearing those stories and just realizing that like although I go to school with like so many students, a lot of them I don't even know. Like I don't even know their stories, and I don't even know what they go through, just because of like how my classes are set up and like the people I'm surrounded by. And I think like oftentimes when we think about really like larger scale problems, I mean like, you know, socioeconomic issues, gender issues, or like racial issues, it seems really big, and it seems very overwhelming, and it seems hard to like come up with like one sort of one-size-fits-all solution that can like mend all the problems. But I think where it really helps is when you like sort of break down the problem into smaller chunks, and to be able to sort of like tackle sort of that smaller chunk and like kind of do your part. And if everyone sort of does their part, sort of like tackle a small piece of the problem, I think that's where we sort of get effective change, and a larger problem doesn't seem as big, and it seems like something that's manageable.
What do you think we could do to make it so that people across not only Maine but America, who are white Americans and others, wouldn't be afraid of me and you?
I think again it comes back to sort of like the educational aspect, and sort of like trying to integrate people, or in the sense of like integrating people more, and like having people hear the stories. I mean that's sort of one of the reasons why I wanted to do the storytelling component on my website, in order to have people sort of hear perspectives that are different for them. Like although they might not agree, but like that's someone's, you know, life story. It's something you can't really take from them. Like they're telling it as it is. And so like, yeah, you can like, you know, accept it or not, but that's just the way their story unfolds. And I think definitely with like after the 2016 election, for people kind of like holding in those thoughts, kind of come out a little bit more and feel like, okay, like I can express my views if I know other people feel the same way as me. And so this country, which, you know, I used to feel like pretty okay and sort of makes me feel a bit unsafe, and I'm assuming for others it makes them feel a bit unsafe too, because, you know, there are people who don't want me here and people who don't want other people like me here. And the more scary part is that like these people have been here all along. They just haven't shown, you know, their perspectives and their opinion until now. And so yeah, I think like, you know, when I was traveling with my sister, like I saw like something written on like near like the train stop of like, you know, F Asians, and it was a really scary moment.